Good evening and welcome to the Environment and Transportation Subcommittee of the Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Spaces. Tonight, we will be speaking on one bill. We have one House bill left in the committee. It is HB 1470, Prince George's County, Chesapeake, and Atlantic Coastal Bays Critical Area Protection Program, Cutting or Clearing Trees. This bill is quite interesting, and if Patrick is here, I want to see if we can go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty, and then we can get into conversation.
Excuse me. Okay, my mic on, everything good?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, this bill is before us with the Prince George's County delegation amendments, which strike the bill and put in language that applies only in Prince George's County, as did the original bill, and to property on land less than 5 acres in size, and requires enforcement involving a violation of cutting and clearing trees in the critical area for Prince George's County to record a lien on the property subject to the violation within 90 days of issuing notice of the violation, which obviously was the cause of the whole problem in this case. And then they're required to have that lien to enforce against the current property owner the violation. And then we go on to apply it retroactively so that it applies to this situation, and then requires Prince George's County and the Capital Park and Planning Commission to vacate any enforcement actions that have been taken against the current owner, including releasing the lien, and then requires the Prince George's County government to reimburse the current property owner for costs and fees associated with the enforcement actions, and then perform restoration or mitigation that may be required under the critical area law. Oh, and it also sunsets the bill after 2 years.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for those of you who don't know, in Montgomery County, we have our own little committees that do these bills. So I was the committee chair that did this bill for Montgomery County. And I just wanted to point out, Patrick gave an excellent summary, but this applies, I don't know whether you said this, but this applies only to land parcels of 5 acres or less.
Correct.
Sure. Okay. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this was the one where somebody had testified about the long nightmare
Yes.
he went through. Was his property less than 5 acres?
I think it would have, he said it was around 5 acres. It would have to be less because they tailored it to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so,
Maybe Lisa from the commission would know for sure. She was involved in those talks.
oh,
That's
Lisa.
correct.
Great. That was a long nightmare that he went through.
Yeah, and so I guess the question here is I think the bill is well intentioned, and I have just many questions. And one, the question of, and I guess Lisa or Nick can answer this question. And thank you for being on the call or in the meeting. Why isn't this statewide? One, and two, how often does this happen? Because with the gentleman presented, and after certainly reading, I read through his like 3-page testimony again. It literally there's no. I guess I'm not sure why, whether it's Prince George's County or the Critical Area Commission, kind of forced this guy to pay for somebody else's essentially cutting and clearing of trees. One, but two, while this is a very extraordinary story, I just wonder, how do we potentially keep this from happening anywhere else in any critical area where someone may have done this and then it just falls on the owner? They don't know it. These people have put out thousands upon thousands of dollars to remediate this for something that they did not do and probably may or may not be reimbursed for. So, Lisa, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Boyce. This is Lisa Herger. I am the legislative coordinator for the Critical Area Commission. So to answer the first questions, the circumstance is one that we haven't seen before. I've been around for over 30 years with the commission staff, haven't seen it. It is unique. the way that most jurisdictions handle their critical area enforcement is really tailored to how their local law offices manage enforcement issues. So we have never put into or requested that you all put into the law that they put liens on property specifically, because some of our counties do use that as a tool and other ones don't. And normally we're aware of when there's a situation that's kind of gotten out of hand. We were not aware of this one. Also, just to be clear, the commission and the commission staff aren't the ones who put the fines or liens or whatever tools are being used on the property owner. It is the county level that handles that, or the local municipality, whatever the case may be. Nick, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that to help answer Delegate Boyce's questions.
I just want to follow up, Lisa, to your point. Yes, I know it wasn't you all per se, but I guess the question is upon purchasing the property, does the deed say, hey, this property is in the critical area protections, and then therefore A, B, C, D can or cannot happen? Is that?
There is, when you purchase a piece of property in Maryland, there is a notification in the stack of papers that you sign that just indicates whether or not a property is in or not inside the critical area. And then it's one, up to the homeowner to recognize that, and two, to find out, do their due diligence about what does that mean and what's allowed and what's not. Some counties are proactive and they send property owners in their tax bills some information about that. It just depends on the jurisdiction. So that's kind of what's happening right now in Maryland.
Okay, I'm sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I think Lisa pretty much covered it. I would say this, I would agree with her with this situation. I can't think of too many, I can't think of a situation like this before. It sounds like that there just was some sort of disconnect between purchasing of the property, that this lien was in place. But as Lisa said, in other jurisdictions, they have other different ways to do these. We allow them opportunities to do enforcement different ways. So this is really kind of a rare instance.
Thank you, Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say I share your questions. And I serve on the Maryland Environmental Trust Board of Trustees, and they have sort of a similar case. So I wonder, there are different enforcement entities, and I wonder how uncommon this is. In that case, there isn't such a clear like good guy and bad guy. It might be a little more complex, but I do think this is something that probably comes up more than one might imagine, at least maybe in a muddier version of it. So yeah, I also think it's something that bears some care in dealing with it.
Thanks, Delegate. Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Foley, you sound familiar with the bill as it went through your subcommittee with Montgomery County delegation. Are you comfortable with how it's changed and all? Is it?
Well, if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
yes, actually I am. I think it's pretty circumscribed. There's also a component, it was a Prince George's County bill, basically, that we had to sign off on. But I do think that it's it's very specific. And as has been pointed out, it's to address a very specific situation. And then also Montgomery and Prince George's are kind of unique in the sense that the National Capital Park and Planning Commission also has a role here. So they also are involved in making sure that that the tree clearing is also done. So I am comfortable. I'm comfortable with the bill. I voted for the bill twice. That's my.
There are other parts of this bill that and if you're finished, I'm sorry if you're not finished, Delegate Otto.
Yeah, I was going to say the park and planning is good with it, and
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I do have a couple of concerns with the bill as it relates specifically, and we've been talking about this, and Patrick has been helping with this, specifically stating Prince George's County's government's requirement to reimburse the property owner. And so I don't know if that is something that can be, worked on together. But again, I still think that this is something, while very unique, to Prince George's County, can and more than likely will potentially happen again, one. And two, the second part of the reprint, page 3, really it's line 6, and then the additions, and then section 2, I guess somewhat of this is like uncodified, maybe language talking about the requirement for Prince George's County to reimburse the current property owner for all costs and fees associated with any enforcement action.
That
taken
is
into
section
violation.
2, subsection C.
Yes. Yeah. So that is something, the question is can or should Prince George's County could provide reimbursement, given that they know the details of this on their own? Do they need us to legislate to tell them to pay folks back? And again, going back to the broader issue, if this happened somewhere else, and someone else had put thousands and thousands of dollars into remediating a issue that they didn't cause, a problem that they didn't cause, would we be at a statewide level, for instance, telling the same jurisdictions, hey, if you do this and these people have to put in all this money for something they didn't do, you have to also pay them back. So that is something I think we should think about. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would point out also that the bill sunsets after 2 years. So it is retroactive. Again, this is tailored to a very specific situation that we heard about.
I certainly understand that. That's not the issue. The issue is that, to me, it's so detrimental that I can't, I heard certainly Lisa and Nick speak to the fact that they've pretty much never seen anything like this before. To me, it's never about if, it's about when. And it could certainly happen again. The other issue is that there was an assumption that this amended form was supported by everyone. And it seems as though, and I think that someone from the Prince George's County Council representatives on there say they actually don't support this bill. And I see Lorenzo Bellamy, if he wants to speak to that, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to members of the subcommittee. First, I want to apologize because I did come in to testify. We submitted written testimony in support of the bill as originally introduced. I was not aware of the amendments until actually at the hearing, where I heard the delegate talk about the amendments. And Chairman Corman did not call me up, even though I was assigned to come up, and I'm actually grateful for that, because I would have had to have pivoted from my original testimony and say that we had some concerns with the bill and would have to take a look at the amendments since we hadn't seen them. Having seen them, Madam Chair, you pointed out one of the major areas that we have concerns about, and that is the section 2, subsection C, number 1, and that's the Prince George's County government shall reimburse, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have serious concerns about that. We do understand that the notice provisions, the lien provisions, and we think that those probably make sense, but we have some concerns. And Jabari Cooper, who is the manager of the Prince George's County Council General Assembly Committee that supports that, we deliberated on this bill with that committee, is on the call as well, and he may want to opine as well. But we, as the way the bill has been amended, Madam Chair, we have a problem, especially with the section dealing with the Prince George's County government having to reimburse for the expense. So again, I want to extend my apologies for submitting written testimony in support, but my rationale for that is that I had not seen the amendments until actually the moment of the hearing.
Okay, so So, well, we can't do anything about that anymore, but can you speak to,
Correct.
you said it's the reimbursement issue, but you said what was the other issue that you?
No, that was the primary issue. I was saying that and Jabari, please feel free to.
Yes.
Excuse me, no,
Okay.
sorry.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, the other area that I said we did not necessarily have a problem with was the requirement for notice and the lien provision, which would give parties notice. So we didn't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Because I'm looking at also just the original bill. The
Correct.
original bill was just essentially, it was very basic. It's just if a person in good faith purchases the property, a critical area may not be held liable for doing some, the cutting or clearing of trees given the previous owner's violations. But then it said the commission shall adopt regulations authorizing a person to appeal an action brought under this section. And I guess, again, a couple of questions. I think we're planning to do something with this bill, but the question becomes, without this bill, can the Chesapeake and certainly Atlantic Coastal Bay's critical area program create an appeals process? Lisa?
We actually have that already written into our law.
Okay,
So I don't know that we necessarily needed that
got it.
language from the first version.
And the appeal process speaks to somewhat this issue of somebody else doing something and then current folks being held liable for it. So I guess help me understand or help us understand as it relates to your current provisions. If, say, the owner had figured this out and would have come straight to you, how would your current process have supported him or her, I guess the owners, as it related to Prince George's counties?
Typically, when we get a call from an owner who's having an issue with the local government, we go back to the local government. So in this case, we would have went back to DPI and tried to figure out, what the issue is and how we would manage dealing with whatever the fallout was from the previous owner. Again, we haven't really had this happen before, so it will be new territory for us. And to be clear, the current law doesn't deal specifically with a previous owner's actions that weren't satisfied or mitigated before somebody took possession of the property. But we do have an appeals process for general, like the person who owns the property, clears the trees, how to manage that.
So you don't have a process to essentially, as it relates to past actions of someone else?
Correct.
Okay, so it's no. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sorry, this whole discussion has now opened up more questions for me. What is the purpose now? So now now that I heard some of this discussion, what was the purpose of putting the lien process in the bill? And would that lien process have the lack of a lien have impeded the witness that we heard from being able to get an appeal?
I think
I guess
the
when was it
lien would have
discovered?
noticed that something was wrong, therefore they may have not even bought the property, as I understand it. Is that correct, Patrick?
Yeah. If there had been a lien in place, then they would have had notice that there was this issue. But as Lisa said earlier, there's 60 some jurisdictions, Lisa has the exact number, that are under the critical area law, including municipalities and counties, and they all handle enforcement differently. Some don't do liens, some do it other ways.
Okay, thank you. And going back to the 5 acres, why was this limited to 5 acres? I mean, isn't it possible this would happen? I mean, understanding that this is a very unique situation, but as the vice chair said, it could happen again. And, what if somebody has 6 acres and it happens? What is the harm of allowing that them to appeal?
Well, this bill is meant to just address this one issue. Like you said, one shoe doesn't fit all. If it happens again, it might happen in a jurisdiction that doesn't do liens as an enforcement mechanism, we can't cover every instance, is I guess what I'm trying to say here.
Thank
And to
you.
cover this particular one, they narrowed it down as much as they could.
Okay,
Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bellamy referenced Prince George's County governments on the phone.
Yes, I was about to ask about that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what he had to
Absolutely.
remark about the situation.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boyce and Chair of everyone on this subcommittee. I'm Jabari Cooper here on behalf of Prince George's County Council, and we are very much, like I said, we were in favor of this bill prior to the amendments. I think that our kind of concern is that this is in dispute between, I guess, two private parties, and that we're not against that. This person should not, be made whole again. But I think that this issue, is between the previous homeowner versus the kind of county government who is kind of like what is prescribed in the bill. So I kind of wanted to kind of raise that issue is that I think there is also the ability for the current homeowner to find retribution or can bring suit to the previous homeowner as regards to things that were not laid, explained about this being a critical area and the things in regard to that contract. So
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. I understand that, but unfortunately, that's beyond that time because the property owner per Prince George's County had to take on mitigation at their costs. So now it's between Prince George's County and the owners. So it's not the past owners, which I'm sure they can file suit for. But the reasons why they were doing all this mitigation is that, as I understand it, is because the county made them do so. Isn't that correct?
again, I'm on the behalf of the county council. I think that would be more of a county executive kind of question for our printers, our representative from our county executive to speak to that agency and can speak to DPI enforcement and what they're I don't know the situation as this kind of personal. I don't know how this situation kind of transpired essentially. But
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Bellamy, are you still on the call?
I am.
So,
Madam Vice Chair.
so again, this goes back to, I hear Mr. Jabari Cooper saying that he thinks this is an issue between two private parties, and it actually is not. It is here because the county forced these individuals to mitigate the cutting and removal of trees, mitigate that based on the past owners. The county made the suit. So this is not while it is essentially, whether it was a disingenuous or the information wasn't passed down appropriately, the actions that the owners took was based on Prince George's County's, correct?
So I imagine that it was negotiations and conversations that they had with DPI in order to mitigate, like you said, what would be the course of action. So you're technically correct that the conversations, and I, again, as Mr. Cooper said, this is probably a question for the Prince George's County government and not necessarily the council. But we do recognize that, obviously we're trying to assist here and speak on behalf of the Prince George's County in general, since it does affect both the council and the county government. But
Well, the council's here. He said he doesn't know anything about the details, which makes me feel like he shouldn't really have an opinion if you don't know the full details. You can't say either way if you don't. I don't know. Can I just ask what DPI stands for? I'm bad with acronyms. I'm sorry.
Inspections and
Yeah, that's
enforcement.
correct. Department of
Yes,
Inspection and Enforcement.
And that is a separate, and like I said, that is governed by our executive branch and at the county government. So they appoint, they control that branch. And so that is not, like I said, we could request, but that's very private information that, like I said.
Okay. Okay. To me, it seems like, with the exception of this section 2, the bill seems fine. as it relates to ensuring there's a lien on the property so that people know.
Yes.
And that essentially, if a lien is not recorded as required, the local jurisdiction may not seek the remedies described in subsection. And that way, the owner is not then held liable for someone else's action.
Yes.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think that's correct, from what I understand about the bill. But I would also point out that, and again, this is tailored to just a really specific situation that occurred. But I do think that, you know, it appears that there could be a situation where there were there's enforcement action taken, and then that's by the county or by the National Park and Planning Commission. And so therefore, you know, somebody has to be responsible for reimbursing of that if there wasn't a properly recorded lien. So that's what concerns me about absolving the county of all responsibility for
Right.
reimbursement.
I'm not absolving them. What I'm saying is that this is creating a lien process so that this doesn't happen to begin with. So there isn't already a lien process. One. Two, I hear what you're saying. I'm just wondering, can it be worded a little less specifically to say that they have to go through a process to be, you know, I don't know how you would specifically say it, but I don't know how you would say it, but saying that somebody shall do something and that we don't know 100% of the details to is concerning. To say that they should be reviewed to see if there is anything owed to the owners based on the fact that there wasn't a process to begin with, the notification would have happened that they wouldn't have to have taken on this responsibility to begin with.
Right, and if I may, I think also there, you know, this is retroactive, and I think that I understand why it's retroactive, but that causes me that if there's one part of the bill that causes me concern, it's not what you're concerned about, because I'm okay with the reimbursement personally, but I think the retroactivity makes it a little, you know, we don't know what, I think this has been said, but we don't know what's out there retroactively besides this one case, right? And that might be it, but there might be others.
Well, and keep in mind on the reimbursement, we're not sure that the state can do that. We're looking into that.
Well, you mean the
Prince
Prince
George
George's
is a
County
charter
government,
county.
not necessarily the state. Oh, it says the state. Oh, the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission. Well, it would have been nice if we did have somebody from Prince George's County executive team on here because as it seemed to me, this is actually still going on. So Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this is for Patrick. Is there some other way of making sure that a county enforcement arm would really think 2, 3, and 4 times before going after an owner? In other words, that they would feel responsible to check and not do what was done to this guy other than making them pay them back. Like, I wonder if there's some other thing that we could say, because I do think there has to be some enforcement something, or, but maybe there's another way to do it that I don't know. Patrick, do you think of anything that?
Well, I mean, like I said, there's a Rorschach puzzle of different enforcement processes that we're dealing with here.
Right.
So that this is why the bill is drafted so specific the way it is to deal with this one particular enforcement process. So the answer to your question short is I don't have anything on the top of my head. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because I know we need to wrap up time. We agree that there needs to be some type of notification as it relates to a lien. I think we agree. I think I do like that if it's not properly, if a lien hasn't been properly put on it, the next owner, it cannot be responsible. I do like that. The acreage, I think, sounds like folks are interested in changing it so that it's not just 5 acres. So we'll have to find out what the medium acreage is, what's an appropriate acreage. And then it sounds like there's a desire to speak to I don't want to use the word reimbursement, but some type of recovery or acknowledgement or being able to um, compensate to a degree individuals who've been wrongly held liable for cutting and clearing of property that they did not. And so we want some type of compensation, and maybe compensation is not necessarily a payment, but it could also be a clearing of some of this mess. So just to figure out what that is and get some better information actually from the county, maybe the Parks and the Parks and Planning Commission, and or just actually Prince George's County government, somebody from the executive county exec's office. Mr. Cooper.
And thank you, Ms. Excuse me. Thank you, Mrs. Boyce. I would just wanted to say that there is a checklist that I have, and I can share with all the members of this body that I am trying to receive that kind of outlines all the communication from DPI to this property owner in regards to this bill, that I think that will provide a little bit more context. And like I said, I don't have that information right in front of me, but I'm trying to.
With all due respect, because we don't need any more paper, but is it going to speak to us making if it's just like a thread of conversation, I don't think I'm interested in it. What I'm interested in is something, whether it's the county execs team, somebody from DPI contacting us as it relates to what are they doing now, knowing that this is an issue and knowing that essentially they have been charging the wrong person and forcing the wrong persons to do remediation for something they did not do. If they're saying that there's already a process in place for them doing that or to do that, that's what I would like to see or hear. Does it speak to that? Does that information speak to that, Mr. Cooper?
A little bit, like I said, I don't want to just overstate it, how much the checklist, it does speak to it a little bit, but it will provide context for the conversation. But like I said, I think to your point, I think that a representative from DPI and the county exec's office will be best to inform this body.
Well, if there is a checklist, happy to send it to me. Mr. Bellamy can give you my information to email it to me, and I can email it to the subcommittee and council as well. But we need to, I'll check with the sponsor of the bill so that we can get somebody from the executive or from DPI to give us a little bit more context so we can close this out. There any other points that need to be made for consideration? Acreage, compensation of some sort, retroactive. I thought Linda said no retroactive, or yes?
You mean me personally, or?
You mentioned
Yeah, I was going to say that the bill applies retroactively.
It does.
And that is, I think, part of the conundrum here.
Well, the bill wouldn't work if it didn't have retroactivity.
No, I understand, but you know, if it's retroactive, you don't know who else is caught up in it.
Okay, Delegate Otto's the last, and then we have to close out because the next
How
committee.
far back does that retroactive go?
In the bill, it says September 7th, 2018 is probably to the time before when they purchased the property.
So it's a substantial time frame there, but COVID, a lot of things didn't happen, so, all right.
That's true too. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just to respond to that, it's a substantial time frame, but we've been told there's really only one that's happened in that time frame.
That's true too. Okay. Seeing no more questions, thank you all for a lot of the information that we've had here. Hopefully we can get some more information and send it out to folks, and I'll be working with Patrick and talking to the sponsor to figure out what we can do because it is a House bill. We need to move it sometime this week. So thank you all. We are